Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Ruiter, historian, educator, researcher, and gamer, and this is a History Check Masterclass on Viking names. Let's face it, the Vikings are just really interesting, and they capture the imagination in some great ways. You've probably looked, even just in passing, to the Viking Age for some inspiration in your gaming in the past. Regardless of whether you're thinking about a powerful sorceress, time-traveling rune carver, or some sort of swashbuckling Viking pirate, an often overlooked aspect of Viking-inspired characters, where history can be surprisingly helpful, is in their names. Viking Age naming conventions are rich tapestries of identity and are amazing opportunities for storytelling and roleplay. So, join me for this short masterclass in Viking names. We'll unravel their complexity, and I'll offer a few tips and suggestions for injecting some historical flavor into the names of your Viking-inspired characters. And if you find this helpful, please take a minute to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so that you can make sure you never miss another video like this. Alright, now the first thing we need to clear up is that in the Viking Age, many people, and not just those from the region of Scandinavia, many people did not have family-based surnames. So there are no John Smiths here, son of Michael Smith, son of Harold Smith. I've noticed that a lot of Viking-inspired characters actually fall into this trap. Maybe, for example, you've rolled a fallen paladin of some sort named Thorstein Thunderhammer, who's this black sheep of the family of Thunderhammers who serve as priests to the local thunder god. Now this is cool, but I'm going to suggest that you might be missing a trick here for deeper character development. Let's take a look how. Now, as you might expect, the key unit of a name for Viking Age Scandinavians was a given name, like good old Thorstein that we've just talked about. But the surviving corpus of names in the Old Norse language is actually comparatively very small, so we still need something to tell one Thorstein from the next. Now, instead of surnames, Viking Age Scandinavians made use of a system of naming conventions that reflected ancestry and family connections. This system relies on patronymics, names that designate someone based on identifying their father, or somewhat less commonly, matronymics, names that designate someone based on identifying their mother. A well-known example of a matronymic would be that of the trickster god Loki, whose full name is Loki Laufeyarson, or Loki the son of Leifi, who's identified as the son of one of these goddesses that we actually know very little about. But these family identifying names are probably best represented by those that we find in the Icelandic sagas, where we find, for example, the famous semi-legendary Viking leader Ragnarr Sigurdsson, or Ragnarr the son of Sigurður, maybe better known as Ragnarr Lothbrok. Patronymics are far more common than matronymics in the surviving texts that we have, but both are opportunities for storytelling. Not only do they give players and GMs a chance to conceptualize family connections, but they also tell us a little bit about which family connections are stressed in the construction of a person's identity. Take Loki again, for example. He's the child of a potentially transgressive coupling of a Jotun, the giants of Norse mythology, although they aren't actually giant, and we can get into that in another video. His father is a giant, and his mother is a goddess from the Aesir family of gods. Now, it appears that the matronymic attached to him connects him with one aspect of his ancestry and affords him a certain amount of social capital amongst that group, to the exclusion of the other. So even for an ambiguous character like Loki, who causes a lot of trouble, it's his connections to the Aesir that are recognized in his name, not his connections with the potentially more chaotic and threatening giants. When thinking about a Viking-inspired character, consider which parent their name connects to, why the society they live in might emphasize one part of their ancestry over another, and how your character and those around them feel about those associations. Returning to Ragnarr Lothbrok again, these names can also be expanded if necessary to distinguish the reputation of one Ragnar Sigurdsson from another. Remember that the number of possible names in the language is quite small, so repetition is common. So when needed, Ragnar might identify himself as Ragnar Sigurdsson Ranvejarssonar, or Ragnar the son of Sigurdur, the son of Ranvejar. Genealogy and ancestry are really important to the societies and laws of Viking Age Scandinavians, and this system of naming conventions kind of works as a sort of mnemonic device to help people keep track of each other's relationships and to neatly unpack family histories. So if you're thinking about rolling a Viking-inspired character, think carefully about their wider family connections too, not just their parentage. This is really important. Now you might be asking, if he was born Ragnarr Sigurdsson, where does the Lothbrok come from, and what does it mean? This is a nickname, or a byname, and further helps to distinguish one Ragnarr Sigurdsson from another. These nicknames might be something that you've encountered before. Famous characters like Eric the Red, Leif the Lucky, or Un the Deep-Minded are possibly people that you've already been familiar with. They've actually gone on and inspired whole RPG modules. But not every person in the Viking Age or medieval Scandinavia had a nickname. And when they occur, they're interesting opportunities to learn something more about a character and how they were perceived by the society around them. Because it turns out that nicknames are really complicated. Sometimes an individual's nickname could become so ubiquitous that it actually replaced their given name entirely. An example of this comes from the Icelandic saga Eyrbyggja saga, or the saga of the people of Eyri, where a man is named Thorgrim after his father. So he's Thorgrimr, son of Thorgrim. Thorgrimsson. I told you there were only so many names to choose from. But this Thorgrim was so tempestuous that he was renamed Snorri, a nickname that means something like a storm or a tumult or something like this. So nicknames are not always complimentary, and they're definitely not always badass. They can sometimes take the form of a cruel joke or social commentary. And names like Ulf Squint-Eyed, Eric Ale-Lover, Eystein Foulfart, and some that are even worse, demonstrate that people rarely had a say in the nicknames that they carried. And because naming is so culturally specific, some are just really weird to a modern eye. And it's actually definitely this case with Ragnar Lothbrok. Now, popular TV shows like History Channel's Vikings, for example, regularly leave his nickname unexplored and have even used it almost like a surname. Now, this is probably because it's hard to take someone seriously when their nickname means something like shaggy trousers. And that's probably the case here. At first, this hardly seems like a nickname befitting some sort of semi-legendary Viking warrior king. But one of the main theories that scholars have about this name is that it's a reference to the heroic exploits of its bearer. The medieval Icelandic sagas tell us that Ragnarr might have earned this nickname from his use of some sort of shaggy garment in order to protect himself from the bites of a giant serpent that he fights and kills. Although there's another theory that has been suggested, and this one has slightly less scholarly consensus behind it, but maybe is linked to some history. And that is that instead it could be translated to something like Ragnar Poopy Pants, and may relate to his dying of dysentery shortly after besieging Paris in the 9th century. Now, other names sometimes convey something about the physical attributes of their bearers, such as the apparently very chesty Thorbjorg Shipbreast, or Walking Rolf, who apparently was so big that he couldn't ride a horse, or Thorstein Dromund, who purportedly moved so slowly he was compared to this great ship. Some can even reveal something about the way that an individual dressed, or their international outlook, such as Magnus Barelegs, who is recorded in one source as having adopted a more Gaelic fashion sense, and Olaf Sandal, who seems to have taken to wearing contemporary Irish footwear. And when he's named in sources, his nickname even usually appears in its Irish form, so there's a connection here between people, language, and other places, which is really cool. So if you're thinking about rolling a Viking-inspired character, think carefully about their name. How does it relate to their family history? Do they have a nickname? If so, where did they get it from? What kind of nickname is it? Is it widely known, or just in certain areas? Is it a point of pride or a point of shame? Does it make sense to the other characters that they'll be encountering? Or is it culturally and linguistically specific, and something just gets lost in translation when they try to explain it? Whether used in a medieval saga, in modern media, or around the game table, these names are amazing opportunities for storytelling. They connect characters in really subtle and complex ways to allusions involving family histories, personal backstories, and even more distantly related tales. They really are an underutilized resource for inspiration, creativity, and reimagining this period. Now that's it for this History Check Masterclass. I hope you've enjoyed learning a bit more about Viking Age naming conventions and are walking away with some ideas to implement in your own games. If you've enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to like it, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell to be sure that you won't miss any new content like this. And if we've inspired you to roll some new Viking flavored characters, we'd really love to hear about them and their names in the comments below. Any support you can show for the channel, whether that's through our Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links in the description below, or just by liking our videos and sharing them with your friends, is a huge help and will ensure that we get more free, high-quality historical information to a wider audience. I want to say thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.